Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It is August 19th. It's a Wednesday. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. That means you guys ask questions. We try to come up with answers and give that back to you. Sometimes it connects. Sometimes it doesn't. It happens. It's okay. Sometimes our passing is not where it should be. We do our best. Send your questions in on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. You can also email us, soccerdownhere@gmail.com. You can also join I think it is going to be the Twitch pitch, but it hasn't been officially confirmed yet. It's not done yet. Don't say that because you're going to anger all the other people like Captain Ragamuffin, who is campaigning hard for Locker Room, and there's others who have their favorites.
You still have Friday, right?
It's Fridays when it's going to be decided. I'm just saying, it's Fridays when it's going to be decided. That's when we're going to know what this thing's going to be. But thanks to everybody who hangs out in there as well, and all the questions that you guys send in. So many that I can't always get to them. I do my best. I try to keep it up with what's going on in there, and sometimes it's a lot, which is good. That is very good. That's what we want. Okay, we got lots of things today. We've got Mike Conti joining us at 10 o'clock, as always. We have an MLS match from last night to talk about, even though ESPN Plus kind of struggled with the transmission a little bit. It was something. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Seattle Sounders with a very interesting local streaming deal after our conversation yesterday. Sounders went down a road that had not been had yet in the Major League Soccer world, and one to definitely keep an eye on. It feels like people are jockeying for position ahead of this deal coming up in 2022, or at the end of the 2022 season for 23 and beyond in terms of MLS broadcast. We've got Champions League. We have one finalist, and it is Paris Saint-Germain, who has never been there before. And we will have another one after the end of the day today. Everybody's thinking it will be Bayern Munich. Lyon is saying not so fast. Do they have a real chance? We'll get into that as well. And all sorts of other madness, as it always happens during a show, and we'll see what other news breaks. We do have a new manager in Barcelona. Ronald Koeman is officially the manager in Barcelona, and we're already getting political statements from people who will be running for president when that election comes up about he's not my manager, he's not going to be for me, and all the nonsense. You've got players who are reportedly saying through their agents, I ain't leaving, and you've got others who are keeping quiet. You've got the club saying we're going to get rid of, actually the club said it this way, we're not going to get rid of these guys, even though a couple of them have been rumored to be some of the ones on the go. And others are like, well, wait a minute, I'm not going. What's up with this? So it's going to be all kinds of madness and craziness and silliness and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, it is. And I was reading the quotes from Victor Font this morning, and you can get into that as well. So
well, why don't you tell everybody who Victor Font is first?
Okay. Victor Font is gunning to be the next president for Barcelona.
Okay.
And he is none too pleased with the current president, Josep Maria Bartomeu.
He's not the only one.
No, but Font has already said that it does not matter how successful Ronald Koeman is this year if at the next meeting he is named president, Koeman will be sacked.
So he pulled the Jerry Krause. He pulled he can go 72, he can go 82-0, and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
That's never a good statement to make, first off, because you never come into... Did Bayern say that when Hansi Flick was put in charge? That no matter what he does, we're going to hire somebody else? No. That's a bad move. That's a very bad move. So I don't like that move at all. But again, it's politics. This is what happens, and this is what you're going to hear over the next year or so. I don't even know if they've set the election date. I want to say it's next March.
Yeah.
But they've got to have these politicians who want to be the president of Barcelona come out. And, I mean, they're going to be running a soccer club, but they're politicians because that's how you get elected here. And they're going to come out and say wild things. I mean, I can't remember who it was who said when he was running that I'm going to go sign David Beckham. And knew that was not going to happen because he was going to go to Real Madrid. Like, that was already pretty much a done deal. But you come out and you say wild things to get attention and get some votes. Could that be what's going on here with Victor Font? Maybe. There's going to be more of it. There's going to be more. You're going to see some who are going to align themselves with Messi or try to align themselves with Messi or make you think that they're aligned with Messi. And you're going to see some who take the opposite side because there's votes there too and say his time's done. It's time to go. He's had too much power. We got to move on. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to hang over Ronald Koeman's head for the next year when, oh, yeah, by the way, they have to cut a bunch of payroll and move a bunch of players on and bring a bunch of new players in, either from the bench or from the reserves or from the academy or from outside. They got to do all that while this is hanging over their heads. That's why Mauricio Pochettino was probably like, nah, don't even call.
It's like, nah, fam.
Nah, I don't want it. Max Allegri, like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to chill over here and wait for something better. You don't want that nonsense. Ronald Koeman is a former Barcelona player. I'm sure he feels some kind of pull in that way emotionally. He wants to help this club in a difficult time. It's a difficult time. It's not going to be easy for him, and he might be gone in a year no matter what he does. I don't think he's going to put himself into a position where that's going to be a difficult statement to make, just because I think this year is going to have a bunch of turnover. So we will see. There will be lots of stuff in Spain with Barcelona. It will be the soap opera of the next calendar year in soccer. No question. It's a 2-year deal for Koeman. That was announced this morning. That was officially finalized. Bartomeu gave an interview to Barca TV yesterday, and he said the technical secretary and new coach will take drastic measures, and they will affect certain players who we should give a proper farewell to. He didn't say who would go, but Bartomeu said 7 players were not for sale. Messi, Ter Stegen, Lenglet, Semedo, Griezmann, Frankie de Jong, and Ousmane Dembele. Dembele's been linked to moves. Ter Stegen feels like one that you could get the most return for. The rest, I mean, it's not like Griezmann. I don't know if you could get anything close to a return that would make sense. Frankie de Jong is going to be part of your rebuild. You're not going to move on from him. The others, I don't know if they have much of. I mean, Messi's a different conversation altogether. I don't think the others really have a ton of value at the moment. So you got the biggest wage bill. Lots of clubs are having financial issues. That's a very difficult time to try to be selling players. He also said, Bartomeu, the current president, that they are still trying to sign Lautaro Martinez, which is like, how? Okay. No, that ain't happening. Stop with that nonsense. But again, playing politics. He can't run for president, by the way. He is at his term limit. But he's still playing politics because he probably wants somebody in his circle to be the next guy. He did say that it is impossible to bring Neymar back, and they were working on that last summer because PSG doesn't want to sell Neymar now. Why does PSG not want to sell Neymar? They're in a Champions League final, and he's been really good, even if in front of goal, a little shaky at times. He's been really good. Angel Di Maria was the man of the match yesterday. You could put it on the defense because they had another clean sheet. I mean, they have been the best defense in Europe in the Champions League this year, and that's not what we think of with PSG. But they've been that good. Thomas Tuchel gave the defense a ton of praise. They've only conceded 5 goals in 10 games. And they're able to find that balance between the attack and the defense. Flip side, Julian Nagelsmann, who, by the way, and I want to hear this from the Twitch pitch and everybody else. What'd you think of Nagelsmann's suit? That was something.
Yeah, that's the word to use.
That was something. It took some guts, I think, to put that on and look in the mirror and say, "Yeah, that's good."
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
I mean, did he do the little like finger guns at himself in the mirror with that suit? I think you have to with that suit.
Yes,
it's bold.
Has to be a full length mirror in the hotel. It can't just be.
They're staying in a nice hotel. I'm sure they have a full length mirror in there. Yeah.
And so you had a full length mirror with slacks that were lacking about 2 inches.
But that's the style. You don't understand that. That's the style. I don't like that style. That's not my style. But that is the style. That part's not the issue. You had a big issue about that because you're pulling out comments from the 70s on that one.
True.
What was your comment? Because, you want to share it?
What? It's just like, well, you getting dressed for the flood there?
Yeah, that's like, was that on the Waltons?
Actually, it was in my elementary school, and it was addressed at me.
There you go. No, that part, I don't care about the length of the slacks. Although, again, it's not my style, but I get
skinny
that.
Slacks.
No, it's not skinny slacks. It's what were they made of? Curtains?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is what was this thing? Anyway, you
In
wear
the
that.
hotel room that he's staying in, he's like, I need a suit. That looks like he stares at the drapes. I like that texture. I think I want that as a suit, either off the drapes or off the sofa.
No, he had this one custom made. I mean, this is not something you are going to the thrift store for or you're making yourself. You have this custom made because you think you are styling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you win a Champions League semifinal and go to the final in that suit, cool, I can't say anything. Nope. But if you lose in that suit, you're going to take some stick for the suit. It's just going to happen. He did say this, and this is an accurate statement. After the match, after the loss, he said, "You can't take this game as an indicator," talking about RB Leipzig and the project as a whole. "You can't take this game as an indicator. Paris's 2 strikers together cost twice as much as our whole squad," which is very accurate. Mm-hmm. Maybe if he spent less on the suit, he might have more to spend on a striker. I'm just saying. But I'm assuming that thing was pretty expensive because, wow. That's true. I mean, that's the thing. And that was what I kept coming back to coming into this game is just you've got such attacking firepower and such speed. And it feels like soccer as a whole, as we talk about, the fall of the Spanish clubs, and now the English clubs aren't in the final either, and it's the rise of the French and the German clubs, and why, and this and that, and what's changed. You go back and forth, it feels like, in this game between athleticism and technique. It feels like the yo-yo goes back and forth between the two. The seesaw is up and down with the two. And right now, we are in a phase where I think what is driving the game forward is that athleticism. And it's pace. It's speed. But it's speed in a few different ways. Because it's not only he can run fast.
Yeah.
You have Mbappe, I mean, forget it. He's a game changer. He's a game changer because of that speed. But how do you use it? You can play fast even if you are not necessarily fleet of foot. You can think fast. You can play fast if you are incredibly technical and your skills are very high. You can play fast in those ways. The German clubs, I think, have really pushed this forward, and you had 3 German managers out of the 4 in the Champions League semifinals. They've pushed the game into transitions, and it's all about the transitions, and transitions have to be fast. You can't transition from offense to defense slowly or you're going to get caught. You can't transition from defense to offense slowly or the other team's going to get set. It's all about that speed. Now, what can accentuate that? A lot of the things we just talked about. If you think fast, if you play fast because of your great first touch, or if you can just flat out move fast. The game has moved in that direction. What has the Spanish game been? Not that. The Spanish game has been about, everybody said tiki-taka, and Pep Guardiola hates the term, but it's been about slowing the pace down. It's been about slowing the movement down. It's about finding players who aren't necessarily fast, but are very technical, and you play at a different pace. The German clubs play at a very fast pace. Thomas Tuchel has been able to take that and meld it with players like Mbappe, players like Neymar, players like Di Maria, and play fast and have speed too in terms of individual pace. It's interesting how the game is flipped that way right now. And that feels like where it's going to go for a little while. You're going to see, because we saw the same thing when Barcelona had their rise, and a lot of people zeroed in on a lot of possession. A lot of people zeroed in on the counter press in a way of what they did, trying to win the ball back quickly. The German clubs took that to a whole nother level. That feels like that's where the game is going right now. So you're going to see a lot of clubs around the world start to mimic these things. And there's different ways to do it. Nagelsmann has been able to do this at RB Leipzig and previously with Hoffenheim at a very young age, and to take the things that Ralf Rangnick took from other managers and built on it. Jurgen Klopp took his development at Dortmund, went to Liverpool, now is in a different situation. He's been able to take it to another level. Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, he was the originator of the last phase in a lot of ways. I mean, he didn't create it out of nothing. He built on what other managers had done. But he was the one who, carried the flag for that phase. Then he went to Germany, and he had to do some things differently. And now in England, he's kind of melded all of it together. And he's got kind of a combination of the two. But it's very hard to do unless you have the players who can do it. And he has the big checkbook with him that he can go get those players. That definitely helps him. It helps Jurgen Klopp as well. It helps Bayern Munich. It helps PSG. It can only go so far with RB Leipzig. You have these styles that come into vogue and not. And it's the same thing. I mean, movies have it where certain styles of movies become hot. Music has it with certain things that become hot. Right now, the style in soccer is pace. Pace, pace, pace. Pace of play, pace of individuals, pace. It's all about speed and playing fast. And that's where the game is. Now, I want to see, one, what developments do we see on top of that? I want to see what Nagelsmann does at Leipzig, because the managers who can do it with smaller payrolls are the ones who a lot of times can kind of push the game forward into some different directions. I want to see what the responses are. I want to see what Spain does in response. What does Zinedine Zidane do in response to this? Real Madrid's not going to sit back and say, yeah, this is fine. No, they're going to be insulted by the fact that they're not in the semifinals. They're going to have to do some things differently. And they're a very reactionary club in that, because they can just go sign whoever. But what is Zidane's response going to be to that? Because he can't just keep playing the same way when all these other clubs are doing it that way and having success. He's got to find a way to either match it or counter it. And that's the part I want to see, is who comes up with the counters to this? Who comes up with the game models, the plans to play in opposition to this pace? That's going to be really, really interesting. It's going to be fun to see, but right now we are in a phase where what Bayern's doing, what PSG is doing, what RB Leipzig's doing, what Liverpool's doing, you've got a lot of teams that have a lot of similarities in the way that they're approaching the game, and those are the biggest clubs right now. What's next? What comes after this is what I want to see.
Yeah, you were mentioning transitions and offense to defense, defense to offense. One of the moments in the match yesterday that stuck out in my head was the second goal, where for whatever reason, the RB Leipzig keeper...
I drink to you, RB Leipzig.
There you go. Gulashi decided that he wanted to put the ball back in play with an idea of a very long pass. And I think he ended up having it go behind his intended target. PSG pounces on it, and then literally it's like boom, 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 in the net, second goal, and then you're thinking, okay, this is pretty much done and dusted at that point. And so that was just one of those moments yesterday that, as you were discussing it and describing it, that was what stuck out to me as what we're seeing from PSG.
Katie Weaver says, Jaap Stam has the answer. It involves buses. Yeah, but that can only take you so far.
Yes.
And that's the thing. There will be those counters to it, because we saw them during the Barcelona rise, which was parking the buses and sitting back. That's a little bit harder to do against these kinds of teams. It can be difficult for them, but I think what we've seen, maybe from the first wave to this wave of the fast transition era, is Jurgen Klopp had to go through it. It's a prime example. When he went to England, teams parked buses against him, and he's like, what? This isn't what is supposed to happen. Because German teams don't really do that. Even the lesser teams don't really play in that negative of a way. The German game has been very counterattacking, very transition-based. Even lesser teams do that very well. So he goes in to face some teams in England, and it's like, well, what do I do with this? Like, I've never seen this. So he had to adapt, and he had to adjust. You can do that, especially with the top teams, because then you can, Jarrett says it, and it's a simplistic term, but it's accurate in these cases. You can out-talent teams in that situation. And if you are a Liverpool, if you're a PSG, you can just play through it. But what's going to be the real kryptonite to it for a top team? And I'm looking at like a Real Madrid. I'm looking at, what does Pep do? Going back to the lab now. What is his next move? Because he's kind of been involved in both phases at the top of the game. How does he, re-envision the game? Do we get another, brilliant run from a Jose Mourinho? It feels like the game, both of those phases kind of left him behind. Does he have a reawakening? Do we see that from him? I'm really curious to see what that next counter is from a top team. Because right now it feels they're not all exact. There's different personalities among all these teams that play this way, but the game feels kind of similar. So who's going to be the top team that goes in a different direction? Who's going to be the manager that goes in a different direction? And who's going to be the team right underneath that? Because you look at three kinds of teams in this kind of conversation. You have your top teams. You have your RB Leipzigs. You're punching above their weight, lesser teams. The coach makes the most out of what he has to work with. That's going to be one to look at. Your truly lesser teams who just can't compete at this level, who will be super defensive and just do what they do. That's all they have. Okay, they're not going to push the game forward. The middle group can, because you're going to get creative managers who have to find solutions that are not obvious because they don't have the talent. They don't have the same level of talent. But I do want to see what those top guys do, and if we get a change in approach from a Mourinho, from an Allegri, Ancelotti, who's never been known as a great tactician, but do we get another wave from that group, or is it going to be a new generation coming through, the Nagelsmanns and the younger group coming through that pushes it? Are we going to get it from a different part of the world, too? I mean, is it going to be, Marcelo Gallardo who comes in and does something different? Is it going to be an American manager who comes in and does something different? A Mexican manager? I mean, it doesn't have to come from Europe. But that's kind of what I'm looking for over this next 3-4 years is, okay, now that we've seen teams that have a similar style, have a lot of success, how many people adopt that, and who comes up with the kryptonite to it?
I literally, as you were talking about it over this last handful of minutes, the question that popped into my head, who counters? Meaning teams and managers. That's for me, that's going to be the test case here. Who comes up with the kryptonite? Who comes up with the counter? What teams are they? Are the teams that are punching above their weight? Is it going to be one of the big spenders? So what you have right now, it's an interesting evolution in the game, and now I want to see what the counter is, because I like to see that counteracting. It's like, okay, this is the new thing. Who's going to be the person at the front of challenging this new, I'm not going to necessarily say era, but this new moment that we're in when it comes to your approaches in soccer. So that's literally was the question I had right here. Who counters? Right
Adam
there?
from 816 with a point, and this is where I think you're seeing the tweaks that we're seeing right now. He says chronic injuries are the counter to the pressing. Too many injuries lead to lesser player value. Pressing is a greater risk at injury. And it can be. It absolutely can be. I think what you've seen is even a man like Marcelo Bielsa, who has had a track record of his teams falling apart at the end because they run out of gas and you have too many injuries pile up and they can't finish strong. Even he's had to make some tweaks in that. I think sports science is going to help manage that element of it. But I think maybe what we've seen in this era right now, or this Champions League anyway, and kind of what we're seeing across top leagues, is even those teams, because if you are that middle team like an RB Leipzig has even had to come up with ways to deal with being the favorite where they can't just press and manage the minutes and manage the workload. They've had to have the ability to play with the ball and not just be a team that plays off of the ball. Klopp had to do it. Klopp, like the comment that he made that has stuck with me at Dortmund was the press was his playmaker. It wasn't anything that they did with the ball building up play. It was, we're going to run, and we're going to cause mistakes from you, and that's going to give us the best opportunities. Even he's had to adapt. The top teams have found the balance. The second wave teams who all they can do is press haven't. I think the New York Red Bulls have been a bit of an example of that. They've had great success. They've won three supporter shields since they went to this kind of style, but they haven't had the ultimate success because it's very hard to have that at the end of a season where that's all you're doing. That's why they went and they got Kaku. That's why they've tried to do some different things, but they don't have the talent to do that. And that's going to be the balancing act. But Adam's right. I mean, you've got to find balance with it. Because if you just run your guys into the ground, you will have injuries. If you just run your guys into the ground and you take a very talented player and say, no, I don't care what you can do with the ball, you're going to run and you're going to run and you're going to run some more and you're going to run here and you're going to run there and you're going to keep running. That takes away from that player value as well. So it limits who you can sell to. And take the comments from within the Red Bull organization. There was a question this week about, I think it was like 18 players have moved from Salzburg to Leipzig, and only one has moved from New York to Leipzig, and Tyler Adams. And they were like, well, is that going to change? Are there players at New York that you like? And they're like, no, not really. Right now, no. And there's not. I mean, because you look at the talent level of the New York Red Bulls, and it's just not that high.
Yeah.
And that's always going to be the limitation. If you get to that next point where you can't just press, you can't just press your way into things, because you're going to hit a wall where you can't. Because teams will take that away from you by being negative and just bombing the ball forward and not having any possession. That's going to happen. You're going to have to make the jump that Jurgen Klopp did. And Pacine has a really good point, and this is the biggest change for Klopp that is different. Instead of what we see typically, where chances are created from a number 10 or from wingers, or from your central midfield, Jurgen Klopp's playmakers are his outside backs. And he's created a system. He's had the players to do that too. I mean, you can't just make that out of thin air. He's had the players that fit that, and he's leaned into it. And he's created a system that accentuates their playmaking abilities. That's a little unique to Liverpool, but that's one way to have that next step. It's fascinating. Like, I love getting into this kind of stuff and digging into it and thinking about philosophies and where it's going to go. And I hope that we get these kinds of varieties in MLS. And I think we're starting to get there. For a long time, MLS felt very similar, and the differences in matches were individual players, were just talent. But now you're starting to get, personalities of teams. San Jose is very unique in the way that they approach the game and what they do on the field. They're an outlier. Peter Vermes has been very true to a 4-3-3, and he's tweaked it in different ways over the years. He was not really a possession guy and then leaned into that and trying to take the next step with that team. And I don't think they've quite got there, but this year could be the year that they do. You've got Portland, who is a great counterattacking team. You've got others. Oscar Pareja is a very good tactician. I want to see what he ultimately turns Orlando into. Atlanta's had an identity. What is that going to be going forward with a new manager? Is it going to be the same, or is it going to be the same with added bells and whistles? The Red Bulls have a very identifiable style. Philadelphia has a very identifiable style with their 4-4-2 diamond that's a little different. We've seen Greg Vanney play a diamond from time to time in Toronto, but he's also played a lot of 3-5-2. He's been very flexible in mixing his team around. You're getting more of that, whereas in the past it was just, okay, what player is going to make a difference? Now it's like, okay, which manager is going to make a difference here? That's good. That's good for the long-term development. But now the next steps in the United States are, we see that at USL Championship. We see that at USL League One. We see that in youth matches. And we see the development of young players coming up in more tactical systems. Because I think one of the things that you've seen over the years with American players has been, they get to that, like U17. U17, the U.S. is competitive with anybody in the world. U20, you could even make that case. Where things change is when American players sometimes go to European clubs and they're valued for their work rate, they're valued for their technique, they're valued for their physicality, but they don't have a tactical background at all because it's been pretty vanilla. That's got to change. They've got to come up in some of these different systems, and then you'll see some teams adopt, man, I really like what Red Bull does. We can do that, and we can teach that, and then those players become valuable to a New York Red Bulls and potentially to a Red Bull Salzburg and potentially to an RB Leipzig. It's going to be fascinating to see. I like that development in the U.S., how it feels like we're getting there, but there's still a lot to do.
Nathan Pugh's in this morning with a couple of thoughts. The thought that is in this particular topic, he says, right you are, Jason. Learning to break teams down was a tough lesson for Klopp. Still some learning to do.
Yeah.
The Reds have evolved to be able to strike from multiple venues. Atlanta needs to evolve in that way a bit as well. Up the Reds, John.
But it's a constant evolution. Like, you don't ever perfect it because teams are going to do different things to you. I mean, that's the thing is a team like Liverpool that has become a top team, a team like Atlanta that is a top team, teams who are going to come in and say, we can't play with them, so we're going to sit back and we're going to park the bus, or we're going to play 2 deep lines of 4, like I think you're going to see from Nashville this weekend, and say, break us down. Do it. We're just going to make it to where you can't beat us easily. What do you got? And you've got to constantly find solutions because everybody does that differently and everybody has different strengths. You know, some teams, there's a weak center back. Okay, you can take advantage there. Some teams, one side is weak. You can take advantage there. You've got to constantly evolve it and find new ways to do it. Klopp has done that to great success in England. That's different than what his Dortmund teams look like. And Atlanta will always have to do the same because they will always be one of the top teams in this league in terms of expectation. You know, you looked at it in the Orlando tournament and you saw and you heard it from all the managers. Even Atlanta not playing well. It's like, we respect him. We respect Pity Martinez. We respect Ezequiel Barco. We've got to be careful. We can't let them hurt us, et cetera, et cetera. Even 10 men, Cincinnati said, we're not risking anything. Not going to do it. So, top teams, Barcelona went through it under Pep. He's had to go through it everywhere he's been. Germany was maybe the most different for him because it was maybe the least of teams just sitting back and defend against him. They tried to hurt him in a different way, which I've always felt like is the more likely way to get a result. You know, if you're not a team that can sit back and bunker effectively, don't.
Yeah.
Don't just because you're playing a good team. Like, try to find another way to hurt them. Barcelona, I felt like you had a better chance when they were at their best to play them straight up than to try to sit back and bunker because I felt like Messi was always going to find that sliver of space and kill you. And that's, you know, what Liverpool doesn't necessarily have. They've had to find the other ways. They've done it from the outside. It's what you've needed from Atlanta, and you haven't gotten it consistently yet. So that's what's got to change here. But yeah, that's what teams are going to do. They're going to make it difficult for a top team, and you've got to find solutions to breaking that down. That's always on the manager to do that.
Because I would think that if you're bunkering, if you go into a match, and it's like, okay, we're going to bunker for 90 minutes. Over time, just the wear and tear of having to do that physically would catch up with you at some point, and then there would be that one moment where the superior team, and I'll put those words in quotes, can take advantage of a mistake, put the ball in the back of the net. So for me, if you can't do it and you don't think that you can for that full 90, for me, that's always that sword that edge that you're kind of on as a team trying to compete in a situation like that.
We've got a lot of questions in the Twitch pitch. Jason Nix asked if we get the sweet parking spots at the Benz this weekend, right up front. I don't. Are you going? Are you going to be in the press box?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have applied. I have yet to receive my okie doke, but my plan is to be there. Yes.
Well, you ain't coming in the radio booth. That's. I'm just telling you now. That ain't happening. Miller Pope will barricade the door. Nobody's coming in the booth. I don't know exactly how this is going to go. I know, like, my plan, wherever I park, I'm going straight in. Yes. I'll get the little questionnaire. I'll get the temperature check. I'm going straight in. I'm going to the booth, and you ain't seeing me. Yeah. You will hear me. You'll see the pregame digital stuff we're going to do with the Atlanta United social media channels. That's it. If you're in the press box, you ain't seeing me. I am not interacting with anybody. I am locking myself in the booth, and that's it. That is all. So
then do you want me to still see if I can...
Nope. I'm not seeing you, man.
No. I'm not saying that you see me, although I am interested to see what the layout's going to be in the press box itself for all of us who plan on attending. But... No, do you want me to bring you anything?
No, I can bring it myself.
Okay.
Because there's not going to be food. So I did it for the previous games. I mean, I will bring a cooler. I'll have my drinks of choice in the cooler. I will have a couple snacks, and we'll be good to go. So how many media are being allowed? I don't know. I don't know what that number is. Luckily, it's a big space.
Oh, yeah.
So you can do the distancing required, I think, for a typical Atlanta United game. I think where it becomes a challenge is when it's a large media contingent, and maybe this is because it's the first game back in the venue, and that could be a challenge. For a normal Atlanta United game, I think you've got more than enough space to work out. Abby asked about windows open in the box. In the press box, no. In the radio booth or the broadcast booth, because we might be in a different booth for some of that digital stuff, the window's open. And yeah, for me, like, I've got to hear something.
Yeah.
Something natural. I mean, at Fifth Third for Atlanta United 2, I am cranking that window open as fast as possible as once we get close to game time, because I got to hear something. Or it's not that you zone out, it's just it doesn't feel normal.
Yeah.
You know, like, even without fans, like, I've just got to hear the reaction from the benches. I've got to hear something.
Yep. Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting going to MBS this weekend, and I just have this vision of me being all the way down in the end zone. You know, just doesn't matter how many of us there are. It's like, all right, Nelson, you're going to be in the end zone all the way down there. You're 50 yards away from everybody else. You're going to go down.
Christopher Abel's trying to get you a drum. He wants you to go out into the stands with a drum. That's what he's asking for.
Well, I think that the drum probably, unless the drum is shipped before I would arrive, that drum would be confiscated the second that I try to walk in the door with it.
Yeah, John's not very good at these things, Chris.
And if Christopher is thinking like drum sized drum, and it's, you know, the size of an actual human being.
How many drums do you see that are the size of human beings? What drums are you functioning with here?
The big bass drums. I don't know if Christopher is thinking of like the snare set, where it's just the one that's in front of you that might be 12 inches in radius or diameter. Sorry. Or the big bass drum. What kind of a drum are you thinking, Christopher? And how could I smuggle it in?
A drum-sized drum. That's
a drum-sized drum. It's either the bass drum like you see in colleges, or it's the snare like you're playing, you know.
Those are different sizes, John.
That's what I'm saying.
So there's not a drum-sized.
For smuggling.
There's not a drum-sized drum. I don't even know what that means.
There are multiple drum sizes for drums.
But that's not what you said. You're now trying to change it.
I said a drum-sized drum, and so it's like I'm thinking the standard supporter section drum is not a snare. It is a big honking thing that you bang and makes a lot of noise. So I don't think I could smuggle that in. It's like, what's that under your jacket, sir? Oh, it's a backpack that's got my supplies in it.
What?
Because if you've got a drum, and if you've got a drum and it's attached to you like you're carrying the drum set, like you're in a band or something, like a marching band. And
you're going to bring the whole drum set in now?
No, you have that shoulder harness that's attached to you, and that you could probably reverse and have the drum behind you if you put a jacket on, and it would look really out of place. And there's no way.
You think you could put a jacket over a bass drum from a marching band and get it inside without people thinking like you are horribly disfigured? I mean, what?
Good Lord, no. That's my point. It's like the art of smuggleability for a drum is very, very small.
Smuggleability?
Yeah, I just made a word. The art of smuggling something in. The capability of smuggling something into a space. Smuggleability. Can we please have a naughty option somewhere in the chain? Oh, that'd be great.
I don't know. Christopher Abel, you did this. I blame you. Man.
Uh-huh. El Mataflo wanted to talk about tactics.
Okay, what's El Mataflo got to say? Please save us, El Mataflo, please.
He says, I love watching the tactical evolution of coaches and teams. Quick example from Ecuador and Independiente del Valle. They used to be a bunker and counter team when they first were promoted. That evolved into a high press team during the Libertadores run in 2016. And now, since they have grown in talent and stature in the Ecuadorian League, they've become a possession-based team that can shift tactics mid-games. The whole club plays like this, and pundits seem to be surprised with their dedication to the style. It's very cool to see.
Yeah, and it goes along with the evolution of the club a little bit, where, when they were the plucky upstarts, you've got to sit and defend and eke your way through things. And then you get to a certain point, and, okay, you make a transition. You find another way that you can play that can be more effective the next step up, because being a true bunker and counter team, you have pretty serious limitations in how far you can go. A pressing team can get you further. But a team that can play with the ball is always going to get you the furthest. And that's – I don't think that's negotiable. I think, in general, are you going to have a team like RB Leipzig that goes to a Champions League semifinal? Absolutely. And they're not just a press team either. But you're going to have pressing teams that have success. But who is going to have the most success over a period of time? A team that can play. A team that can play and incorporate other elements, but can play. And Independiente del Valle's had to make that transition as they've become a top club. And what has helped all that is their development of youth players. They have created one of the best academies in the world in terms of developing players. They're not a rich club, so they've had to constantly rely on bringing players through, playing them, and then selling them, and then bringing the next player through. So you've created a style now that is all the way through the club, as Mataflo said, that is identifiable for a 10-year-old who's in the club as well as an 18-year-old who is in the first team. And they are going to continually produce players that are of this style, too, that are in demand. That takes you to another step, is if you're going to be that kind of club and you're going to produce players and sell players on, if you are truly a bunker and counter team, can you develop players that are wanted? Not necessarily, maybe certain positions, but not across the board. If you are strictly a pressing team and your teams and your players just press and run, there's going to be some teams that want you, but not as many. The market's not as big. If you're just producing good soccer players, the market's a lot bigger. And for a club like Independiente del Valle, you have to do that to survive. That's how you survive. You bring a player through, he starts playing at 17, 18, plays a couple of years, maybe 30 games, 40 games with the first team, sell them on for $20, $30 million, reinvest it, put it back in. That's how it goes, and that's the success that they found.
Let's see. Nick has actually, we have folks who are responding to the drum.
It always happens this way. You say something outlandish and people respond.
Of course. Nick has an excellent suggestion, by the way. He says, best to break it down than reassemble it. Or
yes,
pay off custodial services to hide it in a rolling garbage collector.
Of course Nick's going to come up with that idea. I'm just saying, Nick. I'm just saying.
And Jason Heinley was wondering how to actually spell smuggleability.
Spell it. You made it up.
Well, it's I just put a hyphen. To me, it's a hyphenated
word.
That's
a cop-out.
Well, then it would have to be probably smuggle, S-M-U-G-G-L, and then you take out the E, and then it's just ability. So it would be taking out the E in smuggle and smashing the two words together.
So it's smuggleability.
Smuggleability. And Chiefs coach Steve is saying try Toms. Sneak in, try Toms.
Okay. There were recommendations of a cowbell, which I think you could handle.
Yeah. Well, but the issue in all of this is the metal detector.
True. You're going to have to get a Knicks plan.
Yeah, I think that Nick is correct, and Jarrett can stop typing because he has one word for me.
What's that word?
Vuvuzuela.
No, Christopher Abel's got a better one for you, and I don't know if it would set off any detectors, but you might get some weird questions if they do find it. Yeah. The Central American Stadium fireworks.
True.
You want to bring those in?
But then aren't you dealing with like a lighter or something? And isn't that part of the list? That's the naughty list, that you're bringing in anything that can cause open flame.
Well, John, if you're bringing in fireworks and you're worried about the lighter being the thing on the naughty list, there's something completely
because
off there.
fireworks without Flint,
Jason,
you ain't getting nothing.
Jason Nix is right there with me. He's worried about the lighter. You're bringing in fireworks, man. You're bringing in explosives, and you're worried about the lighter.
But if you can't activate the explosives with the Flint, it's just kind of going to sit there, isn't it?
You're missing the point, as usual. If you're bringing in explosives,
That's bad.
yes, you've got to bring in a lighter or something to light it with. What's harder to smuggle in? I'm going to say the explosives.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The lighter or matches are pretty small. You could probably handle that.
But once again, metal detector, unless you're bringing in like matches.
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 Bring a matchbook. Ay, Dios mío. Okay, first off, don't do any of this because you're terrible at it.
Yeah, that's the first thing. I don't know why people are relying on me to actually pull this off.
You would get busted before you even got there. So don't ever smuggle anything in.
Oh no, no question. That's
What'd you do?
I would completely stipulate to not being very good at doing anything like that.
No. Don't even give John any ideas. He would just get himself in lots of trouble.
Well, it'd be a lot of ideas for other folks because I sure as hell wouldn't be the one doing them.
It ain't happening.
No. Let's see. In the Twitter, God, what do we call the Twitters? Because if the Twitch pitch is the Twitch pitch, what do we call the Twitters?
The Twitter commentators do not have a name. It's up to them to come up with it. They can work through this as well. It can't be the Twitch pitch because it's not on the Twitch pitch, so it's got to be something else. So
yes,
that's on y'all. I'm trying to come up with one name at a time. And there's lots of arguments and lots of conversations about it. It's being decided on Friday. Twitter, y'all are on your own for right now.
By Friday, yes. Tofka's in this morning with an Atlanta United question.
Okay.
Nathan Pugh has a Weston McKennie thought. And Bartimus Prime has the pots for CONCACAF World Cup qualifying and a question about that. That's where we are.
Pick one.
Well, let's see. Since Mike is coming up at the top of the hour, I'll save the Atlanta United question. So let's go to World Cup qualifying. The draw's at 1 o'clock.
Is it 1 o'clock or at 2 o'clock?
The live stream is at 1. I think the draw's at 2.
Okay. They're doing an hour of what exactly for this thing?
Well, I'm just looking at the live stream from American Outlaws. So that's at 1 o'clock.
I thought it was at 2 o'clock.
That's what I'm saying.
You're saying 1 o'clock, and I said I thought it was at 2 o'clock. What are you saying, John?
I'm looking at the American Outlaws Twitch conversation, which is starting at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
So that live stream is starting at 1 as everybody gets to see what the MNT's route to Qatar 2022 is all
Okay,
about.
and please, Bart, correct me if I'm wrong here, but John's massively confusing me, which is nothing new.
Yeah.
The stream on, I believe it is twitch.tv/AOATL.
Yes.
Starts at 1 o'clock. The actual draw for not necessarily the U.S. slot yet, because, I mean, they're in the 8. It's going to be who gets to the 3 other spots in the 8. Right. The rest of the draw is going to be at 2 o'clock. But you guys are starting at 1 o'clock, and you can hang out with AOATL on Twitch then. I think that's correct. I'm going to wait for official confirmation because you're going to keep confusing me.
Yes.
Christopher Abel asked if the draw had any impact on the U.S. men's national team. Not directly, because they're in that. Is it the octagonal? Are we going to call it the octagonal?
Call it the octagon?
Well, no, you called it the hexagonal. So you got to go with that kind of terminology here. I mean, if you want to call it the octagon, you could, but I'm trying to keep with the same kind of phrasing.
Yeah,
here.
It would be an octagonal, yes. If you're going to stick with the same phrasing, it would be an octagon.
Then I would like to keep with the same phrasing. I do not want to go to the octagon. This is the CONCACAF octagonal qualification process, and the United States is in that, so they're waiting. This is for teams ranked 6 through 30, I believe, and they're going into their pots for the qualification to get into the octagon, that would actually be proper. It's the octagon at that point. So they're trying to get into the 8. 3 teams will. So they were playing groups of 5, and you don't play everybody home and away. You're playing 2 at home, 2 away. So the draw will be really interesting because let's say you're Canada, for example, who's got to go through this. If you get your 2 hardest games in the group away and your 2 easiest at home, that could be tough. If you get it the other way around and you get your 2 difficult opponents at home and you get your 2 easier ones away, that could be a much easier road. So there's going to be a lot of chance that comes into this. But it doesn't directly affect the U.S., not yet anyway. It's going to affect who gets in to play the U.S. in that octagonal qualification process.
Yes. And so Bart had a question involving that. 1900 CET is 1 o'clock Eastern time. So 7 o'clock Central European time, 6-hour time difference. It is 1 o'clock, so that will be going along simultaneously. I just did a conversion.
All right. Bart, help us, please.
So Bart says, if you're Canada, who are you not wanting to face in your group and in the playoff match if you win your group?
Let me see if I have this really quickly because there's a few teams in there that are a little tricky that you don't want to see. I think a lot of it is down to the home-away section. That's the part that I guess I'm most worried about. So if you're looking at the pots, the top seeds are going to be separated, and these are the teams you would expect to be in that playoff for 3 going into the octagonal. El Salvador, Canada, Curacao, Panama, Haiti, Trinidad, and Tobago. Okay, so you start to look beyond that. Guatemala in pot 2 would be a tricky one. They've got talent. They've fallen on harder times, but they have talent. They can jump up and bite you. St. Kitts and Nevis is one that has pulled some upsets before as well. You look further down. Bermuda's one that I don't think you can completely write off in pot 3. They've gotten better. Belize is another one in pot 3 that's had some goal scorers over the years. One of the all-time leading goal scorers in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying, Dion McCauley's played for the Atlanta Silverbacks. He's played for the Georgia Revolution. He's a big-time goal scorer for Belize. Guyana is another one that can catch you in pot 3. Pot 4, I mean, Cuba is the total unpredictable one because you don't see the Cuban League anywhere, and who knows? That could be a difficult away match if you're drawn to go there as well. Pot 5, I don't think there's anything there that's going to scare you out of Bahamas, Aruba, Turks and Caicos, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, or Anguilla.
What about Puerto Rico in pot 4?
They haven't ever really done anything. So, I mean, you've never been to a Gold Cup with them, so I'm not really thinking they're going to do anything here. You know, in pot 4, the only ones beyond pot 3 that have been to a Gold Cup is Cuba. So, they're the ones to keep an eye on. Puerto Rico, I mean, I don't know what they have at this point, but they haven't had enough talent to ever get to a Gold Cup. So, I'm not expecting them to make noise here.
Let's see. Nathan Pugh with his discussion about Weston McKennie. There's talk now that Southampton is interested in bringing Weston McKennie in.
Yeah, quick update on Weston McKennie. So we told you that Schalke was trying to sell him, and it looked like they had a deal with Hertha Berlin. They need money. They need money fast. That fell through. So they've got another player that it looks like they're trying to sell quickly for cash. McKennie wants to go to England. It fell through because he wants to go to the Premier League. Southampton could be where he ends up. We'll see. But it looks like Schalke is going to try to make another move first because they're trying to find that quick money initially before they move into anything else. So it might take a minute. Schalke needs cash badly, and they're going to find it as fast as possible. McKennie might take a little bit longer to get the cash that they want.
He says, Nathan Pugh says, Southampton, great track record, making players better and moving them on to bigger clubs, e.g. Virgil van Dijk, Mane, Bale, Lallana, Luke Shaw, Walcott, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Alderweireld as a stepping stone. This would be a great move for the young man.
I want to see him settle into a position. I think that was the hardest thing at Schalke. He was so versatile and played everywhere that maybe his development slowed down just a little bit because he hasn't specialized. I think he's an 8. I think he's a box-to-box midfielder. I want to see him in that kind of role and do it consistently. And I think a move to England would allow that to happen. So we will see if that happens.
And the last question on the board on Twitter comes from Tafka. It is an Atlanta United question, and I will save it for our conversation with Mike Conti.
You already said you were saving it.
So I'm saving it again.
All right. Abby had asked what brand my headphones and mic setup was. It's Audio-Technica. I did add the extra cushions on the ears because the little ones that it comes with are rather thin, as you can see. And that was very painful doing a 2-hour show. These are very comfortable. They're red. They're kind of weird looking, but they're very soft and very, very comfortable. So I don't even notice it during a 2-hour show. So that's helpful. Before we get Mike Conti on the line, why don't you tell us about our good friend, Steve Apolinski?
I can certainly do that. Apolinski and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network, wrongful death and serious injury attorneys. If this is a road that you need to go down, they have over 30 years of experience in Georgia and Alabama for their clients, over $40 million in judgments for same. Couple different ways that you can get in touch with them. Go to the website, aa-legal.com, hit the enter button. When you hit that button, pop-up window pops up, because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 or 366 in leap years like this one. And you can get a live chat going with someone at the other end of the line. Or you can shoot Steve an email yourself, steve@aa-legal.com. What you can also do is give them a buzz and get a free consultation, 404-377-9191 for Apolinski and Associates, proud supporters of everything SDH and the Soccer Down Here Network, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine, top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. Apolinski and Associates, the website, aa-legal.com.
All right, we'll get Mike on in just a second. I finally got into my MLS fantasy team, so we'll be set for that for tomorrow.
Cool.
What the difficulty was, I logged in with the email and the login multiple times, and it's like, name your team. I have a team. I mean, they stink. They've been very bad this season, but I have a team. So I've made quite a few alterations, and we will see how that goes. We'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, cross your fingers. This is where the producer would kick in. We'd be on a commercial break or something, walking around in a studio, and the producer would be dialing up in the background to get the guest on, and we just have to cross our fingers and hope that things don't fall apart.
Yes.
So here we go. I think it's going to work. Okay. John's making creepy faces into the camera.
Yay!
What's up, Mike?
What's going on, guys?
That virtual producer did a good job again.
Yeah, I mean, your virtual producer is kind of batting 1,000 over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, you just jinxed it.
Yeah, you did. It'll all fall apart at some point in the rest of the show.
No, you guys will be fine. You got this.
No, we'll figure it out. I mean, we won't be fine because I don't know when the last time that was, but we will put duct tape on it and keep things going. How about that?
All right, that sounds good.
We're good at that part. Did you watch any of Toronto and Vancouver last night on the ESPN Plus?
No, I didn't. I mean, it looks like Vancouver really had a bad night. But no, I did not watch. I was engaged in some other things. What did you guys think?
Well, one, it was kind of hard to watch because they had some problems with feeds. They never got the English language feed up. They did have the Spanish language feed up, which was really good. I enjoyed it. But it even was failing at times. Their virtual producer did not do a good job on this one. It was struggling a bit. But Toronto
was it
looked
on the ESPN Plus end or the TSN end?
I don't know. That's the question. I do wonder if they. I'm guessing maybe they never got a feed.
Yeah.
Who knows? It was weird. Toronto played really well. Toronto looked good. Alejandro Pozuelo with the assist of the restart so far. Nice little back heel to Nick De Leon, who had a nice goal. Toronto looked good, but now we get into a situation where we're not thinking about the rest of the Eastern Conference for a while anyway. We're looking at 4 teams close to us in Nashville, in Miami, and Orlando. We've had a chance to see Nashville a couple of times now. What are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're going to put a lot of players behind the ball and try to hit on the counter. And they were really dangerous on some counters Sunday in a game in which they did not score. And they were really dangerous on counters a week ago tonight in a match where they scored once, but that was enough to win. So this goes back to what I've tried to warn people about. Don't just assume and expect that, Atlanta United's going to go out there Saturday night and run all over the place and play free and, pepper Joe Willis with 40 shots on goal because they're going to play fast and free. A lot of times that's not up to you. It's up to your opponent. And if Nashville's going to play in a block like that and try to hit on the counter, it's not going to suit a free-flowing style of attack for Atlanta United. So, I hope that's not the match we get. I want to see an entertaining match, obviously, but more than anything else, I want to see a win. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Nashville's good. They're good. They're not great. They're not really deep. They have a couple really good players, but Atlanta United is deeper and more talented, I think. So unless there's a tremendous change in philosophy between this past Sunday night and what's to come Saturday, I expect Nashville to try to put everyone behind the ball and hit on the counter.
And I mean, you're looking at defenders in the likes of Walker Zimmerman and Dave Romney, Daniel Lovitz. You've got, Dax McCarty, who's a part of the discussion. So, I mean, yes, these guys aren't spring chickens, but at the same time, they're some of the most experienced guys that you can have out there for a first-year team to do something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a million years ago, but that's something we talked about a lot in February going into that matchup on February 29th up in Nashville, that the way they were constructed made a lot of sense. They found guys with a lot of experience. They found guys who have been in all kinds of situations in this league, both good and bad. And that kind of leadership and experience can really help a group that has not played together very long. I think the other thing that's going to be a huge advantage for Nashville on Saturday is that they have a head start. I mean, they weren't awesome matches. They weren't thrillers or anything like that. They weren't goleadas, but they have played two competitive matches. Atlanta United has not. So that'll help them too. But I'm with you, John. I mean, they were constructed intelligently, and probably they did the best they could given what they had to work with through the parameters of free agency and the expansion draft and, re-entry drafts and salary caps and all that. They did a pretty good job. I don't think of Nashville as a, true expansion team because they do have that high level of experience.
Yeah, they've done it differently. I mean, you look at what Minnesota did year one. You look at what Cincinnati did year one. They didn't invest in defense. They picked players in other parts of the field and gave up a ton of goals. Miami is maybe a little bit closer to that, but they've put some emphasis on defense. And you go out and you get Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez, who will be available for them to start these games. That's going to help them a lot. But who do you think is the tougher opponent between Miami and Nashville right now?
Nashville.
I'm with you too.
Yeah. I just think Miami's still trying to figure it out. And Miami's bringing, it's kind of like Atlanta. You're bringing 3 or 4 new faces into the mix post-Orlando. The difference between Miami and Atlanta is that this was a new group that didn't have much chemistry to begin with. Nashville, in the meantime, they had a incredibly long interruption of their season, but at least this group has played together and trained together for quite a long time. And again, I think, and it's no disrespect to Leandro or Mikey Ambrose or who Miami has in their back line, but I mean, Walker Zimmerman's a best 11 player in this league.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Romney, you mentioned Levitt. Like Nashville, the spine of Nashville's team is solid. Nashville's spine is really, really good. I don't have as much trust in Miami's spine.
I don't know what it is.
Has a lot of. Say that again.
I don't know what it is. Like that.
Yeah.
That I think.
I mean, Miami's got a lot of glitz and glamour. Big names: Pizarro, Trapp. They've got kind of flashy glitz and glamour names, but I don't know how it fits in the context of what they're trying to do. I think we know the context of what Nashville is trying to do.
Yeah.
And they're building from they're building their team, not necessarily the attack, but they're building their team to be solid defensively. And honestly, they've been incredible defensively. Incredible. Even pre-COVID. They limited an Atlantic United team with Joseph to 2 goals. One of them came extremely early from Barco when Nashville was still trying to get its sea legs. They went up to Portland. They held the Timbers to a single goal. I think a result that looks much, much more impressive now in the context of what Portland has done since that point. And you just got 2 clean sheets on the road in Dallas, a team that's not that bad. So they're really solid defensively. Now, that's their philosophy. Like I said, they're putting almost everyone behind the ball right now and trying to hit on the counter, but they're executing that game plan. And again, in terms of Saturday, I think if you're looking at it from Nashville's perspective, you want to go into Atlanta on the road and get a point. Anything more than a point would be a huge bonus, but you're just going in here to try to get a point. And then maybe you hope when you go back up to Nashville on the 12th, you can get 3. So I think this is going to be really tricky and really difficult for Atlanta United. It's not going to be easy for Atlanta United to impose what they want to do against Nashville, in my opinion.
I mean, because Nashville, Mike, they are who they are. They get who they are. They do what they do. They're not going to sit there and try to find page 7,412 in the manuscript and go, oh, this is who we need to be. They've already got it, I think, figured out, because we know what Gary Smith has done from his time with the Atlanta Silverbacks in Colorado and et cetera. So we know what to expect from Gary Smith, and we're seeing it right now with Nashville.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, we'll see. I think, again, they're in a weird boat, like Atlanta United's been in a weird boat because the season has just been so choppy and disjointed. It's been very hard to build, to use a term Jason likes to use, these societies on the pitch that only develop through repetition and matches. Atlanta United hasn't had that benefit. Nashville certainly hasn't had that benefit either. Nashville's gone through some emotional trauma, too, obviously, with everything that happened to them in the lead up to Disney World, and then with them being withdrawn from Disney World. They've had that emotional trauma, too. But, those types of things can galvanize you. So I'm just really impressed with Nashville's toughness. I mean, you got 4 of a possible 6 in those 2 matches in Dallas. Again, where you haven't played in 5 months, and then you have to wait out an incredibly long weather delay on Sunday night. I'm really, really impressed by them. One other note, by the way, I just want to point this out. It's something that hasn't been talked about yet, but I think it's important. The fact that, to our knowledge, you have not had any problems with the virus with Nashville since that experience Sunday night, to our knowledge, right, I think is a testament to how well the protocols are working. Major League Baseball, they are not about having long rain delays because they don't want players hanging out in the clubhouse. They feel like that could increase the risk of, potential transmission or a problem. As far as I know, both teams were in their respective dressing rooms for like 5 or 6 hours on Sunday night. And it sounds like there has not been a problem to come out of that, which, again, speaks to the protocols work. I mean, obviously, both teams are in control of their team rooms. They did a very good job, I guess, cleaning and sanitizing and making sure it was a safe environment. There was enough social distancing, because that's something that is not advisable. You do not want large groups of people in small rooms for a long period of time. Right. So I got very, very nervous the longer that rain delay went on Sunday, because that's not what the experts want to see. And it sounds like so far there hasn't been a problem. That's a really, really good sign that the protocols are working.
Yeah, if the testing is there and it's doing its job and it's accurate, which I think you could have said maybe with both teams, there was a bit of a question with that leading into the Disney tournament. If you're doing that and you're following the protocols during these kinds of delays, where you're not just letting them loose, hanging out, if you're putting masks on, if you're keeping distance, you can be in the dressing room and handle it. These things are important. Like, it's easy to drop your guard when you're, in these moments, when you're with a team. You start to fall back on routine. These guys have all grown up in, like, you're hanging out in the locker room during a weather delay, you're goofing off, you're acting, silly or whatever. You got to be careful now. And it is a credit to both teams that we haven't had any issues coming off of it, because they should have had a round of testing on Monday and then again today. So everything hopefully will work out. One team we haven't talked about in this group in any detail today is Orlando. And they'll start with Miami in this little phase of play. Is Orlando the team that out of this series of games you think could end up with the most points?
Yes, absolutely. I think they are. I mean, let's see how it looks with Atlanta United with Jurgen Damm and Kubo Torres. But I think Orlando's easily playing the best of any team in this group. And I think now they're getting into the discussion of, if you look at them talent-wise and stack them up next to Atlanta, they don't compare as unfavorably as they've compared in the past. I've looked at this pod for Atlanta United, this 6-match period, and I've thought, okay, Atlanta United should be able to get at least 11 points out of a possible 18. I think where I am the least confident of Atlanta United getting even a single point is that match in Orlando a week from Saturday night. Or I guess whatever Labor Day weekend. I get 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm losing track of time.
None of us know anything about time anymore.
Be 2 weeks. I think I've lost track of it. Yeah, Orlando is here for the Univision game a week from Saturday, and then 2 weeks from Saturday you go to Orlando. So that's the one I'm least confident in. I feel like you should, or at least you'll have a very high probability of getting 3 at home against Nashville, 3 at home against Miami. I feel like you can get a point on the road at Miami. You can get a point on the road at Nashville. But I look at, Orlando. If you get 3 points out of those 2 matches, I think you've done pretty well. And yes, I know Atlanta United's never lost to Orlando. This is a different Orlando team under Oscar Pereira. All the dysfunction that they've had is gone now. I think the question with Orlando, and one aspect of Atlanta United's schedule that I think is favorable, is that Orlando will have played twice and Atlanta will have played twice before these teams play a week from Saturday. As we have discussed, and I think we talked about this last week at this time, it seems like Oscar Pereira does not really have a second group that he trusts.
Yep.
Because if you look at minutes played down at the tournament, minutes not played at the tournament, I don't think he's comfortable with their depth right now. And that's totally understandable. You get on that bench right now, you've got a lot of rookies and journeymen who don't play a lot. So from a depth standpoint, I really like Atlanta United at home a week from Saturday against Orlando, an Orlando team that'll be on their third match in like 9 or 10 days. I think that's an advantage you can exploit unless something changes down there where there are reserves and bench players that start to earn the trust of Oscar Pereira. That would be my one critique of Orlando right now. Other than that, like I said, all that dysfunction, all the problems, all of the sloppiness and probably the self-doubt that existed under their last 2 or 3 managers is gone. And that's making Orlando a really fun team to watch and a scary team to play. So that's my hope that, if there is a critique of Oscar Pereira, that maybe he remains stubborn and he remains extremely reliant on his first 11, and maybe he runs them out of gas a little bit.
So then let me present to both of you, and this is something that I've already done with Jason once already, but in looking at our Juicebox purveyors for the Inter Miami Orlando City match.
This is baffling.
Inter Miami, in the end, what we do, Mike, is I look at the aggregate from Odds Portal, and it gives you 10 different odds makers. Inter Miami is a plus 131 to win in 90 minutes. Orlando City to win in 90 minutes is a plus 195.
Uh-huh.
That has gotten worse.
It's gotten, it has gotten worse.
It was plus 185. Now it's plus 195.
How do people think Orlando is the underdog against Miami?
Well, I don't know what the betting public, what the composition of the betting public is for people who put a lot of money on MLS matches. I don't know if it's savvy people who really watch and dig in and know what they're doing, people like Jason, or if it's very casual people who are just looking to have a little bit of fun with their money, and they don't necessarily trust the brand names. The Orlando brand is not a brand that has earned a lot of trust yet, even with their run to the final at Disney World. Whereas the Miami brand, again, if you're a casual, you hear, David Beckham and, Pizarro and the great Pizarro and the great Will Trapp and the great Luis Robles and this guy and that guy. And that's why I get really, really cringy when I see, and I know that the league has a partnership with, who is it, William Hill right now, where they're, or MGM. I just get really cringy when I see these numbers because I don't think they reflect necessarily what the bookmakers believe will happen. I think they reflect what the bookmakers are trying to set to generate action. I don't think anyone in their right mind, that game's at Miami, right? I don't think anyone it is at Miami, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think anyone in their right mind would be surprised if Miami somehow scratched out a win at home. It is a closed-door match, but whatever. But looking at it objectively, good Lord. I mean, did we forget everything we've seen over the last month?
Yeah.
Or is Dom Dwyer that important to Orlando? I mean, clearly not. They went on the deep run in the tournament without him for most of the way. I don't get that. I mean, I would think Orlando should at least – what's the number on the draw, by the way? Orlando should at least be able to get a draw out of that, I would think.
Plus 248.
Wow. Okay. I mean, again, this is why I don't bet. One of the reasons.
MLS especially. It's a difficult call.
It is. And there's not a lot of data. And frankly, I don't know there's a lot of usable data on Miami. They will be different personnel-wise than they were at the tournament. We probably have a little bit more of a sample size to go off of Orlando. That's a head-scratcher. But again, these bookmakers aren't necessarily telling you what they believe will happen. They're telling you what they believe will generate the most action.
And you want one that might really be a head scratcher. Tomorrow, Philadelphia is plus 227 against New England.
Why? I don't get. I mean,
Philadelphia's been disrespected since the beginning of the MLS's back tournament.
Yeah, people have got to wake up on Philadelphia. I mean, unless there's an incredibly hush-hush sale of Brandon Aronson that's been executed that isn't going to be announced until later, but the purchasing club has demanded that Aronson doesn't play tomorrow. I don't know where you get that. But again, remember, I mean, maybe there's a lot of money coming in on New England for some odd reason. I don't know. That's a hard one to figure out.
Anyone know what's going on here?
Yeah, seriously.
Right. Seriously.
I don't get it.
I would love, and it might be fun, if we really want to go down this road, it would be really, really fun to have, either a bookmaker or an ex-bookmaker, one of those guys who works at the casinos in Vegas who sets these lines, just to come on and kind of explain in not specific terms, how do you set these lines? Give us your formula. Is there an algorithm? Is there Are you just looking at trends? I know that happens a lot. Like, okay, New England is 8-1-1 in their last 10 playing on turf in overcast. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Like, people do look at that.
Yeah.
Trends are really important too. And you see it a lot in American college football, especially people who are so reliant. If you buy that Phil Steele magazine, it's an amazing resource. I mean, he spells out all the trends on weather and, performance against the spread against ranked teams, performance against the spread against unranked teams, performance against the spread on the third week of October. Like, all these trends do come into play. And they're especially useful for the betting public who kind of gambles on sports as a full-time occupation. It's kind of like using a racing form for horse racing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be interesting, because I think MLS is becoming more of a source for this. I think MLS is becoming more active in this area, as they should, because it definitely can generate interest. I mean, there's a huge element of the interest in the NFL and in college football, but more so the NFL, is the gambling element. I mean, it creates people. One of the issues we've talked about with MLS that I think they need to make that leap to is Atlanta United fans are going to watch Atlanta United. No question. The numbers are great. The ratings are good. Are Atlanta United fans going to watch Philadelphia and New England? That's that next step that every game becomes a must-watch that you have with the NFL. Now, calendar's different, structure's different. I get it. Fantasy football is another element too. But you need that interest in the rest of the league, and gambling's part of it.
That's a great point. And right now, the numbers would tell you that's not happening.
Not enough yet.
Atlanta is very infrequently in the top 10 local markets for MLS TV broadcasts that do not involve Atlanta United. Almost never, as a matter of fact, which is surprising to me. I would have thought the opposite, but the numbers show that is not yet happening. And that's part of the jump. That's part of the big jump that MLS is going to need to make. As a point of comparison, it's funny because the Hawks' local TV ratings are not that strong, but yet Atlanta always seems to be in the top 10 markets of, TNT, ESPN, ABC, when they show NBA games not involving the Hawks nationally. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the inverse of what Atlanta United had. Atlanta United's local ratings are extremely good, but the Atlanta market, and I think it's also very important to point out that not all Atlanta United fans live in the Atlanta market.
Sure.
But the Atlanta market has not really, at least statistically, shown itself to be interested in non-Atlanta MLS matches yet. By the way, I mean, it's the same for the Premier League. Atlanta's never really in the top 10 for that weekly. It's really across the board for all soccer outside of Atlanta United.
The one that I think they have, and this is totally anecdotal, I'd have to go back and research it, but I know they were getting into some of those ratings. Stephen Goff posts a lot of it with the Washington Post.
Yeah,
and
right.
I want to say the Women's World Cup, Atlanta was consistently in that top 10.
Yeah, but like the second half of the top 10.
Yeah, no, it wasn't in the top 5, but it was consistently in the top 10 for that tournament, which I thought was interesting.
You're right. But I remember seeing those numbers and the same thing in 2018 and thinking, wow, I mean, I would have thought Atlanta would be in the top 3. Just again, using attendance at Atlanta United matches, the way that Atlanta United content has done on our radio station, where we have measurable data to show that it's being well received and it's driving listenership. I had this assumption that, Atlanta, they're going to be leading the way along with a couple other staple soccer markets in this country for national TV coverage. And you're right, like they were kind of sort of in the second half of the top 10. For the Women's World Cup. They were, kind of fringy top 10 for the men's World Cup in 18, but not really solidly there. Not coincidentally, because the numbers come from Stephen Goff. I mean, the market that has done extremely well for those types of things, EPL and World Cups and things like that, is actually Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Where, again, I mean, up until extremely recently, they didn't even have linear TV for D.C. United up there. So the MLS interest in the local club and the overall interest in world soccer does not necessarily go hand in hand, at least with what that data has shown us.
A couple of elements, and the folks in the Twitch chat room, the Twitch pitch, which I think is going to end up being the official name,
that.
Mike. Yeah,
I like that.
It's got
good.
traction. Friday's the deadline. That we're going to have an official name by Friday.
Don't say it too fast.
Yeah,
No.
You got to be careful with that. You can get yourself in trouble.
Although if something negative does happen, it does turn into that word.
Oh,
yeah, that is true.
That's accurate. Couple things from there that are interesting. Chris Ashley in Greenville, South Carolina, says Greenville, on the other hand, is nearly always in the top 10 for the Premier League.
Exactly right. And there are a lot of Atlanta United fans up there. That is absolutely true.
And people have also chimed in that it makes sense. Christopher Abel said it makes sense that Greenville would be there. They don't have a first division local team. They have the Triumph, that the Premier League would be a pull. Ricky Ricardo with a good point, and something that I've never seen these numbers on, and I'd love to see, Liga MX numbers in Atlanta. Where does Atlanta rank in that? Because I think it's high.
I think it would be too. I would be shocked if it wasn't. But you're also dealing with other factors. How strong is your Univision affiliate in your market?
A little more inconsistent.
What's the cable TV penetration in your market? How are those matches being watched? Are they being streamed where they don't necessarily count in the Atlanta TV ratings? Or are they being watched on linear TV? So there's a lot, and that goes both good and bad. Like we've talked a lot about, how Atlanta's local TV ratings for non-Atlanta United MLS matches haven't really shown up, but it could be that a lot of people in Atlanta are streaming these matches on ESPN Plus. That could absolutely be, and that doesn't count in the Nielsen TV ratings. So that goes both good and bad. But that's a great point by Ricky. Absolutely, I would be.
I'd love to see those numbers.
Surprised. I'd be very surprised if Atlanta was not one of Univision and Tudane's stronger markets for Liga MX. I would be very surprised.
And the other thing that's come out of the Twitch pitch to this morning is Katie Weaver and Abby Schiffman, both with those numbers on the women's side. It's time for Atlanta to get an NWSL team.
We agree. If it weren't for the pandemic, I think we'd be at the finish line by now.
I think it would have been announced. I do too.
Yeah, it's. I'm certain it will eventually happen. I think it's probably. I mean, if you look at all the MLS expansion kind of being pushed back a year. I mean, look, it's a sad reality of where we are right now. Economically, your goals might have changed a little bit. And that doesn't mean that the long-term goal isn't still to have NWSL here, but I just don't know if that's an intelligent thing to be doing right now in the midst of a pandemic when you don't even know when you're going to be able to have fans at your games.
Yeah, it's going to slow it down, hopefully not too much. I think the NWSL is going in the right direction, and maybe Los Angeles coming in helps push it.
The league's in much better shape now than it was even this time last year.
Yeah.
I really mean that.
I
know that sounds crazy in the midst of a pandemic, but you've got the TV thing in place. You had a huge success in Utah. Now you're going to do bubbles or hub cities, I guess. Lisa Baird, Penn Stater, by the way, has done a terrific job running that league. The thing that concerns you is you are starting to see some of your bigger names jump over to Europe. That is a concern. But I still think NWSL, it's a much different discussion now than it was even this time last year. The league is in much better shape. I just don't know where Arthur's head is at right now as far as, wanting to write another big check when you're losing a lot of money right now on the Falcons and Atlanta United because you're losing all your game day revenue.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a second, but hopefully things bounce back quickly enough. It'll happen because I think that league is going places, and I think Arthur wants to be part of that. I think he can have a huge impact in taking it to the next level. So it'll be exciting. It'll happen. We might talk about that. We might talk about some other stuff later today, right, on Stoppage Time.
Yeah, we'll talk some tactics at 2:00, which will be fun because
whiteboard comic.
Well, I'm trying to figure out. I have a whiteboard. I was actually thinking about this last night. I'm trying to figure out how I can utilize it. It might take some rigging.
Could you do like an MS Paint thing? Instead of a whiteboard,
no, I could easily do that.
What's that?
I can easily do those kinds of things and insert images. That part's doable.
Could you do a live drawing?
Ooh, that part I don't know.
Well, we might have something to test between now and 2:00. We have numerous sponsors who are trying to, find feature content for Stoppage Time. So this might be a fun little experiment today.
Yeah, I might have to see what I can come up with. Okay. Well, man, now I'm going to have to get creative when we finish the show. I have to eat lunch quickly. All right.
Not that you aren't busy enough already.
Yeah, really? It's all good.
All right, guys. Take care.
Cool.
We'll see you at 2.
Thanks, Mike.
Good, Mike.
All right, bye.
All right. We got some stuff to discuss. Let me see which one. See, it hasn't been announced officially yet, so it's only going to get this. This is coming from Gianluca Di Marzio, and Chris Ashley will be very excited about this. Leeds United, Marcelo Bielsa has reached an agreement for a renewal. He will be in charge at Leeds. He is not going anywhere.
Yes, and that noise that you heard all the way from Greenville was Chris Ashley yelping with delight and glee over that. That's going to be so much fun to see him in the Premier League this year.
Yelping?
Yelp. Hey! I guess that's a yelp. I don't know. Yelp? One of those.
Yeah. Not yelp. Yeet or yeah. Yelp sounds like it's painful.
No. Yelp it's more an immediate thing. It wasn't meant to be a reflection of pain.
I think he gave it. I don't have exactly what he said in the chat room as a sounder, but it's pretty close to this.
Woo! Oh yeah,
pretty close. Doubt. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's see if there's details. The thing about Bielsa, he's a little odd at times. He doesn't do long-term deals. He will agree year to year, like, okay, yep, I'm going to come back. I'm good. I like where everything's going. The things that I wanted you to do, you did. I'm happy. I'm going to stay. So that's what he has done. He has renewed his contract for another year. He will be there. No drama with that. That is a big one for Leeds and gives them a little bit of confidence going forward. This is another one that, this will get breaking news. So we've talked about which leagues are available, which leagues aren't to watch in the United States. And Brazil now being available on Fanatis with a Brasileiro pack. You can pay $7.99 a month. You can watch the Brazilian league. That was the biggest one I thought that was still out there that you couldn't watch on a regular basis in the United States. I guess with Brazil being out, and I think, John, this is the one that you called that was the next biggest one that was not available, was the Russian Premier League. Yeah. That is on Fubo TV Sports Network now. World Soccer Talk has the update there. Debut coverage on Sunday, August 9th, so they already had it. So they have launched it in the last week. That was match week 1 of the new season. So Fubo Sports Network, the Cooligans have their show there. Julie Stewart-Binks has a show there. I'm not sure everything that's on the network. It is available. How all is it available? If you have Fubo TV, obviously. But it's also available on Pluto TV, which is a free app that you can watch. And it's also available on the Fubo Sports Network website. So you can watch the Russian Premier League for free. I don't think they're putting it behind the Fubo TV wall. So keep an eye on that one. That's pretty much everything. Like, I'm trying to think of a league that I would want to watch that I cannot watch in this country with the services I have, which isn't everything. Scotland is one, but you can pick a team. The way that the format is, it's not really the best format. You have to go team by team. Paraguay is one that is difficult. The South American leagues, for the most part, are all on either Goal TV or available on Fanatis. In Europe, I mean, I think Belgium is available now. The Dutch league's available. All the big five are available. Portugal's available. Greece, maybe? I mean, Greece is a somewhat big league. Turkey's available. So maybe Greece and Scotland and Paraguay. Not bad.
Because, you duck in to watch the derbies on BN from the Turkish league and stuff like that. But, yeah, for me, it's Scotland, and that's really about it. Because Russia, until this announcement with Fubo, they put their games on their YouTube channel, but it was behind a subscription service.
Okay.
And, because that one morning when I thought that I would go and watch the Russian Premier League, and I tried to dial it up on the YouTube channel, and it kept kicking me out, and it's because it was a subscription. So, so now it's on Fubo TV, and, I think the number of countries that are limited, I think it's just limited for me to Scotland would be the one that I would want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so now the Russian Premier League's available. You can watch almost every major league in the world in the United States, which is madness because you get more soccer here on TV than anywhere else. And that can affect a little bit of those MLS ratings. It can affect ratings in general because you have choice. I mean, I wonder, and I have to go back and look at it, when some of these national games are being broadcast, are Atlanta soccer fans watching other soccer? Are they watching games on ESPN Plus, other MLS matches? If it's a time slot that has other competition, are they watching Liga MX? Are they watching South America? Are they watching something else? Also, Burned with a good point. See, Burned goes club. So he's like, if Atlanta United had an NWSL team, I'd watch everything. I'd watch anything they put out, any kind of scrimmage, anything. He's one club rather than following a whole league. I get that totally, and I'm the same way with college football with the NFL, and that's dipped for me a lot over the years. But I will watch it's appointment viewing for my team, and I think where the NFL has succeeded is you watch your team, and then if your team plays at the 1:00 game, there's a game at 4:00. Okay, I'm going to keep watching it, and then the Sunday night game, you had to watch the Sunday night game because that was the game, and for a long time it was the Monday night game that was that. Then they added the Thursday game, and that's been, people haven't really gotten into that. It's been a step too far. Yeah. MLS, I don't know if you get where they want to get with TV ratings until they have the equivalent of Monday Night Football that turned into Sunday Night Football. Until they have that regular time slot that is the game of the week, that is the game of the week, that is marketed as the game of the week. And that is the next step. That's where, okay, I'm going to watch my team play. And then nobody else is playing during the game of the week, and it's the game of the week. It's the big game of the week, so I'm going to watch that. The Premier League's done it they've tried to a little bit with that Monday game, that Monday evening game.
Monday Night Football.
They haven't always made it the game of the week, but they've tried to create a destination there. MLS has to create a destination, and it's not easy because your calendar overlaps with a lot of things. You can't do a Sunday night game in the fall because you have the Sunday night football game. You can. People say you can't. You can. You're just going to lose audience to football too. But if you're trying to create your own audience, you can be counter-programming. That can be effective if the expectations are realistic. Saturday night, you've got college football in the fall. Friday night is the one that I've said for a long time. Kick off the weekend with the game of the week. And you're going to have to, and this is something that I think American soccer fans, especially MLS, are going to have to start to accept. Like, if you look at the table in Argentina, for example, you look at the calendar, you look at the schedule, you have the match weeks nailed down. You don't have the days and times nailed down. You have some games that overlap that are played at the same time, but they'll move things around for TV. It's flex scheduling pretty much the whole way through. Maybe here you do the idea of not flex scheduling for the first half, But in the second half of the season, you're playing Orlando in this match week, and it could get moved into one or two different time slots. The other thing that Johannes adds that I think would be in addition to this, I don't think it fixes everything totally, but it would help generate interest in the league as a whole. I think you have to do the scheduling process. So, okay, let's say you have a Friday night game of the week.
Yep.
It is the game of the week. If you wanted to do a doubleheader, you could. If you get somebody to buy in, and they buy in to have the doubleheader game of the week, an Eastern Conference game and Western Conference game, it's Friday night, it's 8 and 10:30 in the East. Cool. Do it. That's it. That's the best game of the weekend in each conference. Awesome. Love it. Then you have all the other games start at 2 different times, or maybe 3 because you've got conferences, or 4 even if you want to. You've got a Saturday night time slot. You've got a Sunday afternoon time slot. Let's just make that up for right now. And you do 2 times East and West.
Okay.
Johannes says, how much do you think MLS could benefit from a dedicated red zone style channel for those types of windows? It's harder, I think, to do with soccer. It's brilliant for the NFL. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, that was my step down. Was I'd watch the Falcons, and then I'd have red zone on. And that was it. That was what I was watching. And then the Sunday night game. I'd be curious to see what MLS can do with these time slots. They tried at one point to have dedicated time slots on Sunday night with ESPN and with FS1. And they just kept drifting away from it. There needs to be a time that a great MLS match is on. It needs to be consistent. And that's hard because MLS as a TV property doesn't necessarily demand a time slot in one spot, no questions asked. The ratings haven't been there to back that up because that's a big give from a network. But I think it would grow it. I don't think you grow it otherwise. If it's just, sometimes the ESPN game of the week is on Sunday at 4, sometimes it's on, Saturday night at 7, sometimes it's on, Wednesday. I mean, you're going to have midweeks, and that's fine, but you don't have the destination. Johannes said Germany has that kind of setup. They call it the conference. They jump around to each stadium and show 1 to 2 minutes of live action. Then if there's a goal, one of the reporters screams, "Goal in Munich," and they jump to that match and show the goal. Okay. If you have the right producer, and I think we all have to be a little patient as they get the feel for it, and the right host, because part of Red Zone is the host.
Yes.
He's outstanding. He's amazing. So you have to have those things in place or it doesn't work. But you can grow it. And they've experimented with a little bit on Decision Day. I would have no problem with ESPN Plus doing that. And they could really develop it, I think. Mm-hmm. They could really develop that as an alternate way to watch where it is, figure out which personality you want to put. You've got to have somebody in there who loves the league. You've got to have somebody in there who's going to celebrate the league. I don't want somebody in there who's going to be like, oh, look at this crappy defense. Oh, look at this. No. And you might have to go find somebody new. But you need somebody in there who's going to be so excited about all the chaos around the league that night and will do the Saturday night, East-West, the 8 o'clock games, the 10:30 games, do both games, have the right people bouncing around. That'd be awesome. It could work. It could absolutely work. Ricky Ricardo says, I watch any MLS games really at this point that are intriguing. MLS Fantasy has helped me do that. Fantasy football was one of the game changers for the NFL. There's just no question. Gambling was the first one. I mean, why do you think CBS put Jimmy the Greek on forever ago on their pregame? Because of gambling.
And had intangibles as Category 5.
I have no problem with it. Yes, there are people who have problems with gambling. They have addictions to it, and that is something you have to absolutely be careful about. But does that mean you shouldn't talk about it? Does that mean it shouldn't be part of your conversation about a league, about a sport? I just don't think it is. I think it's a very vital thing for this league to grow and to be part of that, because I think it is something that's big in other countries and other leagues. But it can help bridge that gap that you don't have the hundreds of years of culture here of development to bridge that gap. So it'll be interesting to see what MLS does with this next broadcast deal. Everything is up at the end of 22, and they're wanting the potential to sell all of it. Local rights, national rights, streaming rights, everything in the mix. We saw yesterday the announcement with the Seattle Sounders, Amazon Prime, first MLS team, first American sports team outside of the New York Yankees to have an involvement with Amazon Prime. That's their local streaming. So you can't watch Amazon Prime if you're here, for example, to watch the Sounders local broadcast, but you can if you're in the state of Washington. I'm excited by it because I think it's just like Bleacher Report getting involved with the league. It gives them a foot in the door in terms of what things could look like in the next go-round. This gives Amazon the foot in the door on what it could look like. And I'll be very curious to see what their return on this is. So, Ricky Ricardo says, every extra time you can feel Weeby being crazy about how much he loves MLS, so he could do a red zone style thing, try it out for decision day. He would be great for it, actually. He might be the right person for it. That's a really good call, Ricky, because he would have fun with it. I mean, to say you want somebody who loves the league and isn't going to be super negative, you need somebody to criticize it when it's bad. I mean, when it's bad defending. But you need somebody who is passionate about the league.
Yeah.
Weeby would be great. That's a really good call, Ricky. I like that.
You get that on the NFL side with Andrew Siciliano and with Scott Hansen. You get that with those guys as they're drifting in and out. And the biggest element in all of that is being that traffic cop and making sure that you're drifting in quickly, giving context, ducking out, and you can guide that whole thing. And for the two of them to do 7 hours basically of a complete and total ad lib where they're showing you their passion for the sport that's in front of them. They're an effective traffic cop, and they can keep you engaged the entire time. It's a great skill, and I think that Weeby is a good call if you were to do something like that for MLS.
Yeah, it'd be fun. You got to figure out your time slots and get that stuff sorted out, but the consistency of it, I mean, you know when NFL games are going to be played. I mean, it's tweaked a little bit over the years, and you have those little weird things like late in the season when you have a Saturday game when there's no college football, and this year could be really different because of potentially some Saturday windows opening up. But in general, you know there's a game Thursday night. You know there's games at 1 o'clock on Sunday. You know there's games at 4:30 now on Sunday. You know there's the Sunday night game. You know there's a Monday night game. You know when games are going to be played. In MLS, I got nothing. It could be 7, it could be 7:30, it could be 8, it could be 4, it could be 12:30, it could be Saturday, it could be Sunday. That doesn't help. That doesn't help the ratings at all.
Tafka says, can the new TV deal actually require pregame and or talk show content, or is it strictly a rights to show matches discussion?
The new deal can be whatever you want it to be. That's the thing, because everything's on the table. It could. Those are harder things to do because MLS isn't coming from a position of strength. You know, that's the element here is like the NFL can probably have say in auxiliary programming, and I don't even know how much they take advantage of it. I don't know if MLS is strong enough to do that. Now, I would assume that let's take the step to different types of partners. Like ESPN, you're going to run into a roadblock there. You're going to have problems getting an MLS live show on, for example, because just where does it go? Where does the time go? Do you throw it on the Plus, which I'd have no problem with? They've been reluctant to do that. They've done Twelman's show now, Banter, which is being used as like an auxiliary pregame on the digital side, which is they've put some resources to it. It's been good. We'll see where that can go. But for an Amazon, for a Bleacher Report, I would assume that would have to be part of the package to be appealing enough. They don't have the hook of ABC, potentially, with ESPN. ESPN can move games to ABC, and it's like, ooh, that's big time. Fox can move things to Big Fox. Okay, that's big time. Maybe that's the trade-off is, yeah, we can't give you a show, but we can put X number of games on Fox. Now, Amazon Prime would have to have the bumper programming to go around it to give you more, for sure.
and to also make it financially viable for them, because the more content that they can build around a product, you have more opportunities to bring in sponsors and advertisers to make it worth their while to make this upfront investment into the product in the first place.
And the advertising part is part of something that Chris Ashley says. Not to mention, it won't actually start at whatever time it's scheduled.
Yes.
That's another thing the league needs to work on. A standard kickoff is 8 minutes after the broadcast time. I'm with that for sure. If you're going to have a pregame show, have it 30 minutes before. Or you just announce the time and kickoff is 8 minutes after. So if you're going to have the pregame show, starting at 7 and the game's going to kick off at 7:38, that's fine. Then announce the game start time as 7:30. Mm-hmm. But I get it. You're trying to package more ads into it. Does it really make a difference? I don't know. I'm not on that side of the business, so I couldn't tell you. I don't think it does. Well, I think there's ways to leverage it in other ways.
Here's a thought. When you have networks who come on at the top of an hour and kickoff is at 20 or 22 or whatever, here's part of the rationale with that. You have your elongated pregame show. And what you're also doing is you're taking it past the first quarter hour in a ratings hour. You're taking it past 7:15. So what you're doing is by saying that, our start time is at 7 o'clock. You're getting those viewers in, and you're basically padding your idea for ratings so you can sell it to sponsors, even though you're kicking off at 22.
Why doesn't the Premier League do that?
I think, honestly,
that's why I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. I don't think it does anything, because the Premier League, when you have the early game, the 10 o'clock game on NBCSN, you watch that, you have the post game. The next game will kick off at 12:30, and it moves over to NBC. You go to NBC, hi, welcome to Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Here's kickoff.
Yeah.
It is 12:30 or 12:31 or whatever. They get better ratings. So I mean, if you're doing it all for ratings and selling things, like the Premier League would do it, and they're not. So I think there's an idea behind it that just is faulty at this point. If you can't commit the time in if you're ESPN, you've got a packed schedule to begin with for a regular season game, you can't commit that 30 minutes ahead of time for pregame that NBCSN can give you. Use digital, and maybe that's what they're experimenting with banter. Use the digital side, because people, especially in the soccer world, is it the greatest situation? No. You'd love to have the 30 minutes of pregame on TV. If you can't get that, people will go to the YouTube or go to the Twitter or go to whatever to watch it because they want that pregame. The people who really want it will go find it. The people who don't really want it are going to be ticked off because you're making them watch it because you said the game was going to start 30 minutes ago.
Yep.
You don't benefit from it. I do, and Bernd is with me on this one. You do need consistent times. That's the Premier League's another one. Do you get a few that switch around? Sure, but you have in a normal Premier League weekend. They've experimented with the Friday night game locally. Friday night here at 3:00. You have a Saturday morning game, which is their lunchtime game. You have the round of games at 10:00, and you have a 12:30 game. Now, occasionally you'll get a 3:00 game on a Saturday, and Sunday you'll occasionally get two windows or one. But for the most part, okay, you're going to play one of these times. MLS is all over the map, so it's hard to drive ratings without consistency. I mean, we've talked about this with doing this show. Like, when we bounce around, it's hard for you guys to find us.
Yep. When
my travel schedule got weird at times, it's hard for you guys to know, okay, the show's going to be at 9:00. Oh, it's not going to be at 9:00. It's going to be at 11:00 today. Or it's going to be at 7:00 in the evening today. I don't like to do that. So we have our time slot. We do our time slot. Are there times when I wish we didn't have a 9:00 show in the morning? Yes. There are times like when the Nashville-Dallas game goes into kicking off at 12:07 in the morning. It would have been nice to not have a 9:00 show. But Consistency. It's key. So let's do this. One question about the pregame stuff. I think it's based off of what you were saying. Ratings are down for the NFL pregame stuff, right? With Fox and CBS. Ratings have not been that great as of late.
No. Yeah.
Put the pregame elsewhere. And Ricky says even if you're porting over MLSsoccer.com doing it, fine. If it is the digital components of whoever the network is who has the game, fine. I think for a local broadcast, you're having a little bit different conversation because that pregame can be a very important piece for your club sponsors to be on board with. But for a national broadcast, if you can't factor that in, if you don't have the time for it, put it on digital, separate it from the game broadcast. I think it would be better. But the time slots are very, very important. Pasine, and this is something that's come up a lot. I disagree with it. Pasine has said schedule Friday night games and you lose the South. And you lose John for a short part of the season.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case. I don't think there's much crossover. I really don't. And honestly, from going and writing about high school football a decent bit in the last 3-4 years, they're not packed everywhere.
No.
It's not. High school football attendance has to be way down from what it used to be.
And it's in the larger metropolitan areas, you're not getting those full houses. It's in the smaller towns with the rivalries where they understand it is the event on that Friday night.
Which probably aren't watching the MLS Friday night game anyway.
Right. And the way that ratings are here, specifically in the state of Georgia, the Atlanta market accounts for 2/3 of all of the households in the state.
Piscine says, well, then just the state of Texas you're losing.
Yeah, well, that could be.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, the city of Atlanta is 2/3 of all of the households in the state of Georgia. Yeah. So, I mean, then you're adding up Augusta, Macon, Columbus, Savannah, and Thomasville, Tallahassee, and that's the other third. And so outside of that 2/3 where folks would be watching MLS, that 1/3 is probably being drawn more toward those events on a Friday night anyway.
Yeah, it's two different worlds, I think. I just remember the same arguments about, like, first year of Atlanta United. It came up in 18 again, too, and both were proven false and didn't hear it last year. You know, you get into the fall, those Saturday games, the attendance is going to go way down. People are going to be into their college football. It's going to go way down. And I remember people were saying that ahead of the Orlando game in 17 at the Benz. The first full stadium capacity game. Like, oh, no, it's not going to be good. It's different audiences. And what I've noticed is your hardcore Atlanta United fans are watching their college game in the tailgate. You know, like you still are connected to both. But, yeah, if you're an Atlanta United fan, you're going to go to the Atlanta United game. You're going to watch your game on TV. Or you're going to go, if you get into the stadium early, you're going to walk around. You're going to go, plop down in front of one of the TVs and watch.
Yeah.
High school football, I just think it's two different worlds. I really do. I don't think it would affect it. And MLS can't plan for the league based off of that.
Yeah.
MLS could grab Friday night because I don't think they could grab anything else. Like maybe that's part of it for me, unless you want to try to go Monday night and have the last game of your weekend be that. That's going to make it a little tricky for scheduling, but it's doable. I think Friday is more appealing than Monday in terms of what you can grab. You're not getting Sunday night. You're not going to try to fight the NFL on that from a TV perspective because networks won't want to do it. You've got to find a time that the networks would be interested in doing it too. So I'm going Friday. There's potholes with it because I think there's potholes with anything, but I think a Friday night doubleheader, national game of the week, it is MLS Friday night, whatever you want to come up with for a name, that could be a game changer. And then consistency in slots around that. It's going to take some work, but now that you have more control over more venues than you've ever had before, I think you can re-envision what MLS scheduling looks like. In the past, you had to take what you could get. Now you can push a little bit more. You can have consistency. If you're playing on Saturday, you're going to play in one of two windows. If you're playing on Sunday, you're going to play in one window or two windows. Midweek games will happen, and we know how those go, and that's fine. But in general, you're going to play Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday.
John Nason and El Mata Flow are not fans of the current notion of MLS kickoff times currently being pains. They agree. Bartimus Prime says, I love high school football, but the target market for MLS TV products should be the MLS markets, which are large metropolitan areas.
You got to take
Friday
that.
night spotlight game would be great for MLS and soccer fans. The MLS equals soccer family idea needs to stop. Hashtag grow MLS.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, and this is, I'd have to ask people who, have consumed the game overseas as well, what works best for those families? Because you do have to factor in the families. You have to factor in the kids who play. Do you want would it be better? Because we see in England, for example, we just talked about their time slots. I mean, you've got on Saturdays a game at 12:30, a game at 3 local time. You don't really have a Saturday night game. That works for their culture. Do the kids generally play on Sunday? I don't know. Here, could you do earlier games? Would the attendance be better? Would the ratings be better on TV if you did, instead of Saturday night games, if you did Saturday afternoon games? You do have different heat to deal with during the summer, so you've got all these things that factor in. That's what makes consistency hard. But I think you've got to find consistency. You've got to take all those factors and say, this is what's best for MLS. Yes, there's competition here on Friday night. Yes, there's competition for if we decide Sunday night games are the best for attendance and best for ratings. Yeah, we're going to be going up against the NFL in the fall. It's just what it is. That's what we have to deal with. Find it and move forward with consistency now, because you have more teams in their own venues than ever before, and you can dictate these things. That's what I want to see. Lots of different elements go into it. We'll continue the conversation as we go this week. We got lots of things to talk about this week. We do have stoppage time coming up at 2 o'clock today, facebook.com/929thegame. That'll go for an hour. That'll lead you right into the Champions League semifinal. What are those numbers looking like for Champions League? I've heard they've been moving a bit.
Yes, and as per Nick's advice, to keep an eye on it until about lunchtime, so you've got another hour. Lyon and Bayern. Lyon is down to a plus 941 in the composite at Odds Portal. Bayern has decreased to minus 400. Remember, that was up around minus 440 and 450 in the composite. That's down to about minus 400. Your honors, even after 90 minutes, is a plus 615.
I'm all in on Bayern. I just think at this point, talent wins out. Bayern has the same fears that Guardiola had with Manchester City with speed for Lyon, going back to the pace conversation. They've got to be careful. I don't think, and Bernd was very strong on this, and I think he's right. I don't think they go to 3 in the back. I don't think they dramatically change their shape because of that fear. But they've got to be cognizant of it. And does that mean a holding midfielder sits deeper to give you the 3v2 in the back? Maybe. You got to be smart. You can't get caught on the break. But I think Bayern is just too good. I think they get through. I think they get through 2-0.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see Lyon scoring. I'll go 3-0 in this case.
Okay. We will see what happens there. I think that's it for today. Was there anything we did not touch on that we needed to?
News from UEFA. UEFA will stream the 2019-20 Women's Champions League games for free on their streaming platform beginning Friday. Games include PSG, Arsenal, Lyon, Bayern Munich, and others. That comes from our friends at World Soccer Talk. And from our friend Jonathan Tannenwald, Philadelphia Union have signed Paxton Aronson, Brendan's brother, to an MLS contract that will start in 2021.
That happened a while ago, John.
Well, officially official, just reading what he put out there this morning.
We already had that like a week ago.
Well, then we had it a week ago.
It's all good. One thing we didn't have a week ago, Ligue 1's opening match of the new season Friday night. Again, the Friday night game of the week. Not happening. It was supposed to happen this Friday. It was supposed to be Marseille and Saint-Etienne. not happening because Marseille had confirmed 4 cases of COVID-19. So that game has been pushed back to September 16th or 17th. The rest of the weekend is still going, and games will start on Saturday in the new season in the French League. CONCACAF 2022 World Cup qualifying draw starts at 1 o'clock. You can watch on Twitch. For those of you on the Twitch pitch, you got to move to a different pitch. Twitch.tv/AOATL. They're going to be having a watch along of it. Want to see what kind of draw Canada gets? I'd love to see Canada get to the octagonal qualifying format. I'd love to see them get to that. It just feels like they always fall at this kind of hurdle, and I fear for the draw that they could get. You want to, in CONCACAF, in a very general sense, like you don't want to draw going to Guatemala. Mm-mm. That's a tough one. You want to go to the Turks and Caicos.
Yes.
You want to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Take that away game. You don't want to have to go to Guatemala. The team here's the thing that I think could happen. The top team that draws the away trip to Guatemala could be the one that gets caught. That is my early prediction on CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. 1 o'clock is when the draw happens. You can watch it along with the Atlanta chapter of the American Outlaws, AOATL on Twitch. I think that's it. We'll get you caught up on all the rumors later in tomorrow's show. There will be plenty of stuff about Barcelona. There will be plenty of stuff about who the next manager of the Dutch national team will be. There'll be plenty of stuff in MLS as we get into a busy day tomorrow on the calendar with 3 games, all roughly at the same time. Again, come on. You could have come on. We'll talk about fantasy tomorrow as well. We'll get you set up with your fantasy lineups. We'll make sure that John doesn't have anybody who has transferred out of the league on his fantasy team still.
Tyler Adams?
Hopefully he's not available. I'm talking about people who've recently transferred out of the league who could have been on your team. You probably haven't looked at it in a while. So we'll get into all that tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. And we'll be back in the morning. Watch stoppage time 2 o'clock. And I'll be on with not Andy and Randy, because Andy's wife, Ashley, Andy Bunker from 92.9, just had their first child. Yes, and Andy is away, so it'll be Willie P. and Randy McMichael. That's at 1:20 for me, then stoppage time at 2. Until then, much plot, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.